I thought we'd look at a question that I got asked a while ago from one of my students, and that was that he's going on holidays and he wants to try some action sports while he's on holidays. He wants to do some bungee jumping or some free fall parachuting. And he wants to know what's the halacha in relation with those questions, whether a person is allowed to do such sports. So to answer such a question, we have to look at it. There are two different ways we can answer. One is the halachic side, from the point of view of dry Jewish law. And the other side is the non-halachic side, from the point of view of building up your character. So let's look from the halachic side first of all. There's an interesting question which is related, that's found in the Noda B'Yehuda. That was Rabbi Chizkel Landau. His life spanned the 1700s. And a person asked him that a man who Hashem gave him a big bracha, that he merited to have a house and a farm and a whole forest. And he wanted to know that whether, because there were all these wild animals in his forest, was he allowed to go hunting with a gun, or is it forbidden for a Jew to go hunting with a gun? That's what he asked the Noda B'Yehuda. And that's very similar to our question, because hunting is like really a form of action sports, like a safari. You put the hunter against the lion or the tiger, and there's a bit of danger there, and a bit of action. In his question, there's also a side that we talk about whether tsar balei chayim, of pain to a living animal, whether you're allowed to do that or not. That's not our question with the action sports. Okay, from a purely legal halachic point of view, you first have to address the question of putting your life in danger. The Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Jewish Law in Yoreh De'ah, chapter 116, rules like this, and I'll read it to you. One must be careful to avoid all things that are dangerous, because putting oneself in danger is more serious than performing forbidden acts. And one should avoid even the chance of danger more than the chance of sin. Therefore, it's forbidden to walk in any dangerous place, such as by a loose leaning wall. Based on this, the Noda B'Yehuda rules that he says it's forbidden for people to go hunting unless you need the animal. Why? Because you put yourself in a dangerous place in relationship to the animals. And the Torah tells you, guard yourself exceedingly. Okay, so even though there are places where you're allowed to put yourself in dangerous situations, for example, in order to make a living, or to save people's lives, or to go to a war that's a mitzvah, it's clear that if it's only to have fun, right, you just want to have fun, it's forbidden. So now let's get back to your question. This is true in relation to your question if the sport really involves some level of danger. So I don't know, we have to go and look and check what they say about bungee jumping there, how strong the rubber band is there, and free fall parachuting. I don't have the details. The next thing is you have to look and see whether one's intent is for self-improvement, either physical or mental. If one's intention in doing action sports is to build oneself up, then sometimes it will be permitted. Let's look at this. It's obvious that taking a walk in nature is more dangerous than sitting at home on your sofa. But no one's going to say that it's forbidden to go for a walk in the park. Why? Because if the reason you're doing something is considered a need, it allows you to enter a certain level of danger. So things that are below a certain level, that they're almost not dangerous at all, even without a need you can do them. You don't need a need to stroll in the park. Things that are above a certain level of danger, that are really, really dangerous, then it's almost always forbidden, unless exceptional circumstances saving people's lives and things like that. But the things in the middle, which could include a whole lot of action sports, that's going to relate to how much need there is. The more need, the more we're going to permit danger. The less need, the less we're going to permit you to put your life in danger. You have to examine every case specifically, but where there's a real need, for example, a person wants to get fit, so they do mountain climbing, or a person needs to build their character. They need to feel that they can conquer things, they can grow, they can achieve, so they become mountain climbers. That could be a real need. Every case we'll examine separately. What's the dividing line between a sport that's a need and a sport that isn't? See, apart from what we've mentioned, it seems to me that you have to ask yourself, what's the purpose? Why are you doing it? In connection with the sports that you're talking about, bungee jumping and free fall parachuting, it seems to me, I've never done that, but it seems to me that there's no health or character improvement at all. The opposite's true. A person puts themselves in a situation where they bring themselves close to death, even if it's only an imagined death, and they get this huge run of adrenaline. They get this adrenaline high, and this imaginary, this play death gives them this great sense, a false sense of mightiness, of being a gibor, of achieving something, of conquering something. But in reality, they didn't conquer anything. It's all just a bluff. You didn't get better character traits. You didn't widen your spiritual outlook. You didn't improve your physique. It's all just pretend. Yes, sir.
Some people would I think would say that you would get rid of your fear of.
So some people would say that you're getting rid of your fear of heights. So that's really true. A person who has a very big... I myself have no fear of heights. I've just got a very big fear of depths. That's what's really scaring, to be scared of a great depth instead of a big height. If a person was at such a stage that their psychologist, that their mental health keeper said to them, this is something you've got to handle, you're not being able to walk up to the women's section of the synagogue and it's stopping you living a normal life, then maybe that might be a thing. But in most cases, that's not true. In most cases, people who do free fall parachuting and bungee jumping are not people who are scared of heights. All they want is that rush, that whoa. And that brings us to the second non-halachic answer. The Nodav Yehuda, who we quoted before, he forbids hunting not just because it's dangerous. He has another explanation. He says it's not a Jewish pastime. He says, let's look in the Torah and see who are the great hunters in the Torah. Well, there's Esav and there's Nimrod. Not nice Jewish boys. You need to check if the action sports are really good for a Jewish soul. What does a Jewish soul strive for? Well, the Torah tells us in the book of Devarim, chapter 30, it says, Hachayim v'hatov. Life and goodness. Therefore, it seems to me a person should look for challenges that add to life and goodness. That build life and goodness in the person and in the world at large. And Baruch Hashem, there's no shortage of such challenges, even when you're on holidays. Shalom u'bracha.